There, at our anniversary party, amidst our closest friends, and under the soft glow of the ballroom lights, I found my wife with another man. Her eyes, once filled with love for me, now flashed with excitement for him. Betrayal never comes from enemies, it seems. As the night wore on, my heart grew cold and a sinister plan formed. I was to use her secrets against her, crafting a revenge as meticulous as her deceit. Every step was calculated, every move precise. This is a journey of love, betrayed, and vengeance unleashed. This is my story. Enjoy watching it. The clapping went on for quite a while that night as they celebrated the guest of honor, Cassie. Zack had heard applause for his wife before, but this time it was the longest. Many wealthy families from Houston were there to support local charities. Cassie was being honored for the second time in 5 years for her leadership at the WOW Foundation of Houston. Zack felt really proud of her. At the end of the event, Cassie gave a moving speech, thanking everyone who helped with their time and money that year. She glanced at Zack, who subtly shook his head. She smiled back at him and expressed her gratitude to her family for always supporting her. After she finished speaking, the crowd cheered loudly, signaling it was time for the music to start. The WOW Foundation always had musicians ready to play. That night, a talented local singer performed as well. Gabrielle, Cassie's mom, sat next to Zack, holding his hand. Despite being nearly 70, she was still very fashionable. She whispered to Zack that Cassie should thank him directly. He responded, "Mom, if anyone can change my mind, it's you. But we've talked about this. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Cassie and you. I owe you both so much." Gabrielle insisted that Zack had done a lot for their family, and the foundation wouldn't be the same without him. She told him she couldn't love him more if he were her own son. They both agreed they had great role models in their parents. Zack laughed and mentioned he got his stubbornness from Gabrielle's late husband, which made her love him even more. Gabrielle missed her husband dearly but was thankful for her wonderful family. Zack felt the same. He knew he wouldn't have married Cassie or been where he was without Gabrielle and her husband Sam many years ago. Back then, Zack was often late because of his job. One evening, he had another urgent call that almost made him miss a concert. He asked his girlfriend Mary to meet him there. He was excited for the evening, but when he got to the venue, Mary wasn't there. She sent him a message ending their relationship because he was too unreliable. Zack understood. His job as an MRI engineer often required sudden trips which disrupted their plans. Disappointed but determined, Zack decided to go into the concert hall and enjoy the music. He found a great seat near the center. Next to him were 2 young women around his age. He greeted them and they smiled back. During the intermission, Zack offered to buy them drinks, but they declined. Mindy, one of the women, was friendly and said she'd love to join Zack for dinner later at a nearby restaurant he had planned to go to. Her friend Lisa decided to join as well. After the concert, they all stood to applaud the orchestra. Lisa seemed less impressed, but still agreed to go to dinner. At the restaurant, Zack explained the situation and they were quickly seated. The evening turned out to be enjoyable and both women were impressed. Zack was glad Mindy took the chance to join him, and it turned out to be a good night for everyone. "Do you know why your friend didn't show up? It's mostly my fault. My job has really unpredictable hours. I can be sent across the country or even overseas without much notice. Because of this, I've had to cancel plans with her several times when I had to travel. It wasn't fair to her. It's a shame because I managed to get really good tickets to make up for it. I wanted to treat her to a nice evening out. Do you go to the symphony often?" Mindy answered, "Lisa goes to concerts often, but I haven't been in a long time. Since I'm her roommate, I usually get pretty jealous." Zack looked at Lisa, who seemed to be thinking. She explained, "I have a degree in accounting, but I also trained as a musician. I used to perform a lot, but now it's just a hobby." Mindy joked, "She's a fantastic performer, but now she prefers to critique rather than play. She hardly ever performs anymore." Lisa looked at her friend with a stern expression. She replied, "I'm learning to appreciate music in a different way than when I was performing." Zack asked, "What instrument do you play?" Mindy chimed in, "She's an incredible violinist. You should hear her play." Lisa added, "I still play occasionally to keep up my skills, but I wasn't good enough to do it professionally." She then said to Mindy, "That's all I want to say about my music." Zack realized this was a touchy subject for them. They ordered food and enjoyed their dinner. Zack found out Lisa worked as a CPA at a local hospital, and Mindy taught preschool children at a Montessori school not far from Zack's work. She loved her job, but like many Montessori teachers, she didn't earn much. At the end of the night, when Zack paid the bill, he said, "I might be being too forward, but I'd like to see you again. Could I get your phone number? Here's my business card. I travel a lot for work." Mindy quickly said, "Give me your phone." When he handed it to her, she entered her number. "I like going out. I enjoy fancy places and simple barbecue spots. I'm easy to please." Zack liked that. Lisa seemed hesitant to share her contact, so Zack thanked them both for a great evening and wished them a good night. Late one Monday night, Sam Ortiz, the CEO of Magnolia City Diagnostic Instruments, and his wife Gabriella knocked on Zack's door. They asked, "So, how were the tickets? Did you and Mary enjoy it?" Zack laughed and shared how he got dumped but ended up having dinner with 2 other women. Sam was a great boss and Gabriella was quite a figure, always perfectly dressed and highly respected. She used to work in accounting at the company and played a key role in hiring new staff, including Zack. They were deeply involved in local charity work and had 3 successful children. Sam said, "It's unfortunate about Mary, but making 2 new friends is good. Hopefully, your next girlfriend will understand your job better. We're working on reducing business trips in the future." Sam was hopeful that one of the women Zack met might be a good match for him. Gabriella usually advised Zack to choose wisely, which made both men chuckle. The next day, Zack was surprised to get a message from Lisa asking him to call her. They set up a date for the weekend. When he picked her up, she looked stunning in a tasteful black dress. Mindy at home seemed a bit sad but wished them well. Lisa explained, "Mindy and I talked and we decided to see how things go between us first because she's looking for someone who doesn't travel as much." Zack didn't mind that Lisa was a bit shorter than Mindy, with dark brown hair and a fit figure. He was proud to be with her that night, and soon their relationship grew stronger. A few weeks later, Zack wanted Lisa to meet his brother and sister-in-law in Houston. Lisa came straight from work to the restaurant. When she arrived, she saw a woman chatting with Zack at the bar. Worried that the woman was getting too close to Zack, Lisa walked up and kissed him intensely. The woman looked surprised and Zack was shocked. Just then, someone tapped Lisa on the shoulder and said, "Hey Lisa, looks like you've met my twin brother Daniel and his wife Gina." Lisa stepped back, embarrassed, realizing her mistake. She quickly said, "Sorry, I thought she was flirting with Zack." She turned to Zack and added, "You never told me you had a twin brother." Zack apologized for the confusion. Daniel reached out his hand. "Nice to meet you, Lisa." Gina, trying to lighten the mood, asked Lisa what she did for work. Lisa told them she worked at the hospital, and they all eventually laughed off the mix-up and enjoyed the evening. Over the next few months, Lisa never complained about Zack's frequent business trips. When Zack was away, they talked on the phone a lot. She missed him, but was always overjoyed when he returned. Gina introduced Mindy to a friend from Exxon named Robert, and they got along well. When Zack and Lisa talked about being exclusive, Zack asked if his traveling was a problem. Lisa joked that she could manage a couple of weeks without him, and they could find ways to keep busy. That Christmas, they spent time with both of their families in Houston. Lisa's family loved Zack, and at his parents' house, the holiday was a big celebration with many relatives. Zack's Uncle Jack played the violin, and during a break, Zack encouraged Lisa to play. She was reluctant because she didn't enjoy it as much anymore, but the family insisted. Lisa played Hallelujah beautifully, stunning everyone. She played just one verse, but the applause was thunderous. Uncle Jack praised her, and Zack's mom suggested she should play more often. Lisa admitted that not being good enough to play professionally had taken the joy out of it for her. Zack's dad encouraged her, saying she was excellent and should play whenever she felt like it. The holidays showed Zack how well everyone got along with Lisa, including Gina. After their vacation, Zack decided he was ready to take the next step. He bought a beautiful ring and asked his boss, Sam, for a meeting the next day. At the end of the workday, he knocked on Sam's door, pleased to see Sam's wife there too. Zack admired Mrs. Ortiz's grace and poise. noting how every move she made was precise and meaningful. Today, she was wearing a medium-length dress with a matching cape and 3-inch high heels. Her scarf and jewelry added to her elegant look. Zack said, "I'd like to show you something." He then took out a ring box from his jacket and handed it to Mrs. Corazon Ortiz, who looked a bit tense. She quickly glanced at the ring and passed it to her husband, who said, "Very beautiful, Zack. Are you sure Lisa is the one?" Zack smiled and replied, "The woman I would most like to marry is already taken and sitting in this room, so Lisa is my next best choice." Gabriella chuckled, breaking the formality. "Congratulations, Zachariah." She always used their full names. "I'm happy for you," she said, then quickly left the room. Zack, puzzled, asked Sam, "Did I upset her with what I said? Should I apologize?" Sam reassured him, "No, Zack, it was a nice compliment, and she thinks very highly of you. She's just emotional but happy for you. We both are." "Thank you, Sam. Your and her opinions mean a lot to me," Zack replied. "She's loved you from the start. Maybe that's why you two get along so well. Not everyone gets it, but some think she's too proud." Zack laughed. "Those people probably prefer to meet their future wives in nightclubs." Sam laughed too. "Perhaps, but I see your point. Remember your job interview with us? You talked to 3 managers and then both of us," Zack recalled. "I was terrified. I really wanted the internship. There were so many candidates, and only a few spots. The oil prices were dropping, so hiring was tight." "Right. We ended up hiring 4 interns, even though everyone was qualified," Sam added. "During lunch, you sat far from me, but next to Gabriella. Other candidates tried to get my attention, but you focused on her." "I thought sitting far from you meant I had no chance," Zack said. "But I just enjoyed talking to Gabriella. She seemed a bit cold at first, but we got along well by the end of the lunch. When you left, Gabriella decided, 'Hire him,' she told me. You won her over, not just by your skills, but by how you fit with us," Sam explained. "You remember helping your ex-girlfriend's parents in the kitchen? Gabriella loved that. She tried your cooking tip that weekend." "Breaking up was tougher with her dad than with her," Sam laughed. "That day, seeing her laugh with you was memorable. You know how rare that is for her." Zack asked, "How did you two meet before she was Mrs. Gabriella Ortiz?" Sam smiled. "We met at a food bank during college. We were both broke, volunteering there. It wasn't love at first sight, but her presence was noticeable. I run the company, but she's my true partner. We make all important decisions together. She's the reason I'm a better person," Sam concluded. "Don't worry about her reaction today. She wants you to be happy. That's what she cares about." "Thanks, Sam. Please let her know I didn't mean to offend. I value our relationship deeply," Zack said, expressing his gratitude. Sam stood up and Zack did too. "Let me know when Lisa picks a date so we can plan your honeymoon," Sam said, giving Zack a pat on the back before wishing him a good evening. Zack thought about proposing to Lisa on Valentine's Day, but it felt too common. He was eager to marry soon and didn't want to delay their wedding. The next weekend, he took her to Arturo's, and in a quiet corner he proposed. She excitedly said yes. Their wedding in late May was a big celebration with many friends and family. Lisa's parents were overjoyed. Sam and Gabriella attended, and Zack shared a few nice dances with Gabriella at the reception. Afterward, Zack and Lisa went on a week-long honeymoon in the Caribbean, then returned to start their life together. Mindy and Robert also got married soon after, and the two couples often spent weekends together. Sometimes Daniel and Gina joined them. When Zack was in town, they all enjoyed large family gatherings. At these events, Lisa sometimes played music, and they discovered Mindy had a beautiful singing voice. The first 3 years for Zack and Lisa were filled with happy times, especially when Zack returned from his work trips. 3 years in, things began to change. Lisa got a promotion at the hospital, which meant a better position and more pay. She would need to travel to Austin sometimes. Zack hoped to sync her trips with his now more predictable ones, thanks to his new role overseeing the production of 2 innovative ultrasonic sensors designed by Mike Dye, prototyped in Vienna, and to be manufactured in Munich. These sensors could create detailed 3D images like an MRI, but were cheaper to produce. The smaller sensor could connect to iPhones and tablets for use in remote locations. This was a big responsibility for Zack, but a great opportunity. His schedule became more predictable, which helped. Sam also hired his daughter Cassandra for research and development, though her exact role was unclear. This led to some skepticism among the younger employees about the future leadership of the company. Another big change came when Mindy and Robert announced they were expecting a baby. Lisa, who had been thinking about having children but felt unready, was now reconsidering. She told Zack, "I really want kids soon, but with both of us traveling, I'm worried. I don't want us to be away from our child." Zack reassured her, "I'm with you. Let's see how your trips go. If mine lessen, we can think about it." Lisa liked this plan, and they shared a happy moment that night. A month later, Lisa made her first business trip to Austin, while Zack had to return to Germany for a week. They both had successful trips and were happy to reunite at home. Soon after, Zack had more trips in the US, but an urgent call sent him to Los Angeles to fix a broken MRI. Upon landing, he got a call from Daniel. "Zack, I need you to do me a favor. Call me when you're planning to come back," Daniel said. Confused, Zack asked, "Is everything okay with Lisa and Gina? Do I need to come back right now?" Daniel reassured him, "No, it's nothing bad. Just call me before you head back." Zack agreed, though puzzled by the secrecy. "Okay, I'll call you tomorrow." The next day, after fixing the MRI, Zack called Daniel. "I'm almost done here and planning to fly back overnight. What did you need?" Daniel asked him to delay telling Lisa he was coming back, then visit him and Gina first thing. Zack agreed, curious but worried. He texted Lisa, "Might need to stay another day or two. We'll keep you posted." Lisa replied, disappointed, "That's too bad. I was looking forward to seeing you. I'll go shopping with Mindy for the baby." Zack responded, "I'm glad it's just shopping. That baby won't lack for anything." "Love you," Lisa replied. "I love you more." Zack was glad he only had paperwork left, as he could barely focus at the hospital. He took a taxi to the airport, found a seat in the waiting area, and quickly fell asleep. He had worked through the previous night on the MRI, and his 3-hour flight was scheduled to leave at midnight. He arrived at his brother Daniel's house just before 6 a.m. Daniel and his wife Gina were waiting, and their kids were still asleep. Over coffee, Daniel asked, "What time does Lisa usually get to work?" "A little before 8. "Why?" Zack replied, puzzled. "Don't worry, you'll find out soon. Just trust me this once," Daniel urged, sensing Zack's impatience. As they drove, Zack asked, "Why aren't we going to my house?" "Just wait, we're almost there," Daniel insisted. They pulled into an older, upscale neighborhood not far from the hospital. "Just watch that house across the street, and no matter what, keep quiet," Daniel instructed as he locked the car doors. "Is Lisa in there? Is she visiting someone?" Zack asked, growing anxious. "Probably just a friend," Daniel responded, handing Zack a newspaper article from Austin. It showed Lisa with a man in a tuxedo, and her engagement ring was visible, but her wedding ring was not. The caption introduced the man as Reginald Aldridge, a well-known music critic, and referred to Lisa by her maiden name as his longtime girlfriend. Daniel explained that he got this news while Zack was in Germany. "There's more online about them, even a picture of them kissing. I've got a report at home with details you won't like," he added. Driving back, Daniel filled Zack in. The man, Reginald, was a music professor and critic, known for his strict reviews and about to start a new job in Austin. "What's he like personally?" Zack asked. Daniel shared that Reginald had renovated an old house, loved cooking Italian food, and was content with his personal life. When they reached Daniel's house, Gina had taken the kids out, but she'd be back soon. Zack decided to call his boss to take a few days off due to a family emergency. His boss was supportive. After hanging up, Zack opened the investigator's file. "I can't believe you hired a private investigator," he said to Daniel, who explained that the detective was very competent and had uncovered things quickly. According to the report, whenever Zack was away, Lisa stayed with this man. "Didn't your security system pick up anything?" Daniel asked. Zack was shocked. "I never thought to check. I didn't suspect anything," he admitted, feeling foolish. "We all liked her," Daniel said. "Did you ever notice anything off?" Zack thought about it. "The longer I was away, the more she seemed to miss me. I thought it was genuine, but now I'm not so sure." Daniel could only shake his head. The report was detailed, revealing more about Lisa than Zack had ever known. It also mentioned that Lisa had practically moved into Reginald's house, with her own set of clothes there, making it easy for her to stay over without coming home. Everyone thought Lisa was just Reggie's roommate. In the Houston music scene, it was known Reggie had a long-term girlfriend, though nobody knew her name. By this time, Gina had returned, and she and Daniel kept busy while Zack read the report. Reggie was known as a wealthy, arrogant critic from Austin who had become very influential. 2 conductors had left Texas because Reggie created an atmosphere where audiences were overly critical instead of enjoying the music. This led them to move to more appreciative communities. His harsh reviews were liked by the elite, but drove some performers away, tired of the negativity and feeling of us versus them, which made them feel unwelcome. The report included an article about a lead singer who was emotionally unstable due to her husband's betrayal just before her solo performance. She poured her emotions into her music. However, Reggie's brutal review led her to quit the symphony and vow never to perform again, and she took her own life a week later. This wasn't covered by major newspapers. Daniel remarked, "This man is toxic." The report also mentioned unaddressed high school accusations of inappropriate behavior by Reggie and that Lisa wasn't his only girlfriend. Inside Reggie's house were detailed layouts and photos. There were also recordings of Reggie and Lisa that Zack was advised not to view if he hoped to reconcile with Lisa, though he had no plans to do so. After reviewing all the data, Zack joined Daniel and Gina in the kitchen to discuss next steps when the doorbell rang. Daniel answered it. "Is Zachariah here?" It was Mrs. Ortiz wearing jeans, a rare sight. She hugged Zack tightly. "Frank called Samuel, who called me. When I heard your family had issues, I came right away." She added, "I know something serious must be wrong for you to miss work like this." Zack, moved, realized he truly appreciated her. "How did you know it wasn't Daniel who answered the door?" he asked. "Your brother looks at me differently," she replied. She guessed they were discussing Lisa. Zack confirmed Lisa was unfaithful. "What will you do?" she asked. Daniel explained they wanted to support Zack, revealing their sister Miriam had seen the compromising photo and shared it because she knew the impact of betrayal, referencing a past incident with a teammate named Scotty Mitchell. Gina explained that back in high school, Scotty had deceived Daniel's girlfriend and bragged falsely about it, leading to a confrontation where Zack broke Scotty's arm during a football practice. This resulted in Zack being expelled from the team, but redirected him towards academics and a successful college career. Gabriella joked about thanking Scotty for setting Zack on a better path, lightening the mood. Worried about Zack's reaction to Lisa's betrayal, Miriam had alerted them. Zack affirmed, "This man is harmful and I need to address it. I appreciate you coming, Mrs. Ortiz, but what I'm planning might be too much for you." She interrupted, "Nonsense. You might need a good alibi and you have a lawyer. Just be smart about it." That morning, everyone stared at Gabriella as she declared, "I know everyone thinks I'm too proud, but no one harms my family. No one." "Watch your language, Zachary. Doing the right thing doesn't mean you can swear," she chided. "Yes, ma'am," Zack replied. Gina giggled and Gabriella smiled, pleased. Zack then shared details from a private investigator's file with Gabriella to give her a full picture of the situation. For an hour, they brainstormed and dismissed various wild ideas. Zack was shocked when Gabriella suggested they confront the problem head-on, enjoying this unexpected side of her. Daniel let them discuss until he intervened. "All these plans might point back to a jealous husband. An investigation would start, and Zack, you could end up in jail." Gina added seriously, "It's too bad the investigator didn't find anything like a sabotaged plane to make it look accidental." That sparked an idea in Zack. "I have a plan. Mrs. Dos Ortiz, I need Sam to send me back to Germany." They discussed his idea until they were somewhat comfortable with it, despite the risks involved. Zack texted Lisa, "I need to stay another day. How was shopping for baby stuff with Mindy? Anything left in the stores?" Lisa responded, "Sorry to hear that. Come back soon. Yes, we had fun. There's a little left for others." Zack then showed everyone the text messages. Gabriella commented, "She'll be shocked when she finds out what's happening. I bet she really does love you." Zack just shrugged. "Not enough, apparently. I can't stand how she acted so sweet while cheating." They all agreed. Zack then added, And later today, I'm going to talk to her best friend Mindy, who covered for her. Gabriella decided to stay for lunch, feeling protective over Zack. During lunch, she told him, "You don't have to call me Mrs. Ortiz. Just Gabriella is fine." Zack replied, "For me, that would be like calling Queen Elizabeth just Elizabeth. I can't." Gabriella laughed off his formalities. After lunch, Zack drove to Mindy's school. He arrived early and went inside without raising suspicion. He greeted Mindy warmly and then casually asked about her shopping trip. "How's Robert?" he inquired. "Oh, he's good. Loves those late-night snack runs," she laughed. Zack then showed her his phone with the messages from Lisa. His tone shifted as he said, "It's funny. Covering up lies for so long can make you sloppy." He then confronted her with the evidence of Lisa's infidelity. "Enough, Mindy. You've been her ally since you were kids. You know everything, so how long has this been going on and why?" he pressed. "I'm sorry, Zack. I really don't know," Mindy stammered. Zack's tone hardened. "Tell me everything or I'll expose everything to Robert and he'll see how you helped her. It's your choice." That morning, everyone stared at Gabriella again. She declared, "I know people think I'm arrogant, but I protect my family." "Watch your language, Zachary. Being right doesn't mean you can swear," she scolded. Zack apologized, and Gina chuckled, pleased with the interaction. Zack showed Gabriella the private investigator's file to explain the situation. For an hour, they tossed around wild ideas. Zack was shocked and somewhat amused when Gabriella suggested a bold move against their problem. Daniel let the brainstorming go on until he finally interjected, "All these ideas could be traced back to a jealous husband. That could start an investigation, and Zack, you might end up in jail." Gina added, "It's too bad the investigator didn't find anything that looked like an accident." That comment sparked an idea in Zack. "I need to go back to Germany. Mrs. Dos Ortiz, can Sam arrange that?" They discussed his plan until they felt somewhat prepared, though the risks were high. Zack texted Lisa, "I need to stay another day. How was shopping for baby stuff with Mindy?" Lisa replied, "Sorry to hear that. Come back soon. We had fun and left some stuff for others." Zack showed everyone the messages. Gabriella noted, "She'll be surprised when she finds out what's happening. I bet she really loves you." Zack shrugged. "Not enough, apparently." Later, Zack met with Mindy at her school. He asked about her day and then confronted her with evidence of Lisa's infidelity. "Robert was struggling during what should have been a happy time," Zack said. "I tried to stop her," Mindy pleaded. "You have to believe me. I hate what this is doing to her." She spilled everything she knew about Lisa and Gerald. She described Gerald as an attractive professor who critiqued Lisa's performances harshly, leading her to quit performing. Despite his criticism, Lisa was drawn to him, and they became involved. Mindy recalled, "Remember the night we met? I was with her because Gerald was out of town. Lisa thought it was the perfect time to meet you." "Lisa wanted to have it both ways," Mindy confessed. "Even after you got engaged, I told her to end it, but she didn't listen." Zack listened as Mindy described Lisa's struggle between the darkness Gerald brought into her life and the light Zack provided. "She stays with him because she misses the music he took from her," Mindy guessed. Zack was firm. "I'm giving you 4 months to come clean to Robert, or I will." Mindy realized the seriousness of her situation. "Please talk to her, Zack. She needs you," she pleaded. "I can't promise anything," Zack replied, "but I won't say anything until after the baby is born." After their talk, Zack left Mindy to think about her next steps. He returned home to Lisa, who was unaware of anything. The evening passed quietly, with Lisa clinging to him as usual. A few weeks later, Zack had to travel again. Lisa was sad to see him go. That evening, as she relaxed at Gerald's house, Zack surprised her with a message. "Surprise! I'm back early. Want me to grab dinner?" Lisa quickly left Gerald's, unaware of Zack's real plan. Meanwhile, Zack sneaked into Gerald's house and tampered with a gas connection, setting the stage for a dangerous situation. How close should he place a candle to the stove? He pondered the risks of his actions. That morning, everyone stared at Gabriella again. She sternly said, "I know some of you think I'm too proud, but nobody messes with my family." "Mind your language, Zachary. Just because you're right doesn't mean you can swear," she corrected him. "Yes, ma'am," Zack replied, and Gina chuckled, liking the interaction. Zack showed Gabriella the investigator's report to help her understand the situation better. For an hour, they thought up and then dismissed several wild ideas. Zack was taken aback when Gabriella suggested they confront the problem directly and aggressively. Daniel let the brainstorming continue until he had to step in. All these ideas might trace back to a jealous husband, starting an investigation that could land Zack in jail. Gina added, "It's too bad the investigator didn't find anything that looked like an accident." That comment gave Zack an idea. "I need to go back to Germany. Mrs. Dos Ortiz, can Sam arrange that?" They discussed his plan until they felt somewhat prepared, despite the risks involved. Zack texted Lisa, "I need to stay another day. How was shopping for baby stuff with Mindy?" Lisa responded, "Sorry to hear that. Come back soon. We had fun and left some things for others." Zack showed everyone the texts. Gabriella remarked, "She'll be shocked when she finds out what's happening. I bet she really loves you." Zack shrugged. Not enough, apparently. Later, Zack met with Mindy at her school. He asked about her day and then confronted her with evidence of Lisa's affair. "Robert is struggling during what should be a happy time," Zack said. "I tried to stop her," Mindy pleaded. "You have to believe me. I hate what this is doing to her." Mindy revealed everything she knew. Gerald was a charming professor who critiqued Lisa's performances harshly, leading her to quit performing. Despite his harshness, Lisa was drawn to him, and they became involved. Mindy recalled, "Remember the night we met? I was with her because Gerald was out of town. Lisa thought it was the perfect time to meet you." "Lisa wanted to have it both ways," Mindy confessed. "Even after you got engaged, I told her to end it, but she didn't listen." Zack listened as Mindy described Lisa's struggle between the darkness Gerald brought into her life and the light Zack provided. "She stays with him because she misses the music he took from her," Mindy guessed. Zack was firm. "I'm giving you 4 months to come clean to Robert, or I will." Mindy realized the seriousness of her situation. "Please talk to her, Zack. She needs you," she pleaded. "I can't promise anything," Zack replied, "but I won't say anything until after the baby is born." After their talk, Zack left Mindy to think about her next steps. He returned home to Lisa, who was unaware of anything. The evening passed quietly, with Lisa clinging to him as usual. A few weeks later, Zack had to travel again. Lisa was sad to see him go. That evening, as she relaxed at Gerald's house, Zack surprised her with a message. "Surprise! I'm back early. Want me to grab dinner?" Lisa quickly left Gerald's, unaware of Zack's real plan. Meanwhile, Zack sneaked into Gerald's house and tampered with a gas connection, setting the stage for a dangerous situation. How close should he place a candle to the stove? He pondered the risks of his actions. Everyone just stared at Gabriella when she firmly stated, "I know some think I'm too proud, but no one messes with my family." "Watch your language, Zachary. Just because you're right doesn't mean you can swear," she corrected him. "Yes, ma'am," Zack replied. Gina giggled and Gabriella gave a small smile. Zack then showed Gabriella the private investigator's report so she could understand the situation better. For the next hour, they threw around some wild ideas. Zack was shocked yet intrigued when Gabriella suggested they could take drastic actions quickly and easily. Daniel allowed the discussion to continue until he finally said, "These ideas might trace back to a jealous husband. An investigation could start, and Zack, you might end up in jail." Gina added, "It's a shame the investigator didn't find anything that could look like an accident." That comment sparked an idea in Zack. "I need to go back to Germany. Mrs. Dos Ortiz, can Sam arrange that?" They discussed his plan until they felt somewhat prepared, despite the risks involved. Zack texted Lisa, "I need to stay another day. How was shopping for baby stuff with Mindy?" Lisa responded, "Sorry to hear that. Come back soon. We had fun and left some items for others." Zack showed everyone the messages. Gabriella noted, "She'll be surprised when she finds out what's happening. I bet she really loves you." Zack shrugged. Not enough, apparently. Later, Zack met with Mindy at her school. He asked about her day and then confronted her with evidence of Lisa's infidelity. "Robert is struggling during what should be a happy time," Zack said. "I tried to stop her," Mindy pleaded. "You have to believe me. I hate what this is doing to her." Mindy revealed everything she knew. Gerald was a charming professor who critiqued Lisa's performances harshly, leading her to quit performing. Despite his harshness, Lisa was drawn to him, and they became involved. Mindy recalled, "Remember the night we met? I was with her because Gerald was out of town. Lisa thought it was the perfect time to meet you." Lisa wanted to have it both ways, Mindy confessed. Even after you got engaged, I told her to end it, but she didn't listen. Zack listened as Mindy described Lisa's struggle between the darkness Gerald brought into her life and the light Zack provided. She stays with him because she misses the music he took from her, Mindy guessed. Zack was firm. I'm giving you 4 months to come clean to Robert or I will. Mindy realized the seriousness of her situation. Please talk to her, Zack. She needs you, she pleaded. I can't promise anything, Zack replied, but I won't say anything until after the baby is born. After their talk, Zack left Mindy to think about her next steps. He returned home to Lisa, who was unaware of anything. The evening passed quietly, with Lisa clinging to him as usual. A few weeks later, Zack had to travel again. Lisa was sad to see him go. That evening, as she relaxed at Gerald's house, Zack surprised her with a message. Surprise! I'm back early. Want me to grab dinner? Lisa quickly left Gerald's, unaware of Zack's real plan. Meanwhile, Zack sneaked into Gerald's house and tampered with a gas connection, setting the stage for a dangerous situation. How close should he place a candle to the stove? He pondered the risks of his actions. Zack had dinner with Sam and Gabriella at their modest home. Despite owning a successful business with nearly 200 employees, they drove Toyotas instead of Mercedes. They asked how Zack was doing. He joked about not needing an alibi and not being in jail, but admitted he felt empty inside. Sam mentioned how much Zack's brother and sister-in-law must love him for taking such risks to help him. Zack acknowledged his family's support, including Sam and Gabriella. The mood was bittersweet as Zack prepared to leave Houston indefinitely. Before leaving, he hugged Gabriella, thanked them for everything, and expressed his love. Later, Zack received a call from Robert. Mindy had confessed everything. Robert thanked Zack for pushing Mindy to tell the truth, though they faced a tough road ahead in their marriage. Zack spent his last night in Houston with his family. Daniel expressed how hard Zack's absence would be and made him promise to return. Zack assured him he would come back after some time away. The next day, Zack began a new job in Munich, Germany, where he would help produce and test new converters and work as a part-time salesperson. His first week in Munich was spent in a hotel while he looked for a more permanent place to live. He eventually found a small 2-room apartment in the city center, which helped him feel somewhat lost in the crowd. Despite trying to settle in, Zack felt incredibly lonely and wondered if moving was a mistake. He missed Houston and questioned how long the pain would last. Although he made some friends at work and improved his German, he struggled with loneliness and didn't feel ready to date. When Oktoberfest started, Zack tried to enjoy it with colleagues, but couldn't quite feel a part of the festivities. His brother called to tell him the divorce was finalized and that Lisa had moved to Austin to help Gerald recover, who could no longer critique performances due to his hearing loss. Zack lived a solitary life for several months, hoping the pain would fade. He chose not to return to Houston for the holidays, instead spending Christmas alone in Munich, which felt cold and unwelcoming. His family, including Sam and Gabriella, called on Christmas Day, expressing their concern and sadness over his situation. In January, Sam called to discuss work, but ended the call by urging Zack to start looking for a replacement in Munich. It was time for him to come home and take on new responsibilities. Zack hesitated, unsure if he was ready to return. Zack had dinner at Sam and Gabriella's house, which was surprisingly modest for a couple who owned a large business and could afford luxury cars but chose to drive Toyotas. They asked how Zack was doing. He joked about being glad not to need an alibi or be in jail, but admitted he felt empty inside. Sam pointed out how much his family must love him for his brother to risk impersonating him. Zack acknowledged his family's support, including Sam and Gabriella. Despite the warm dinner, the mood was somber because Zack was leaving Houston and no one knew when he'd be back. Before leaving, he hugged Gabriella, expressed his love, and thanked them for everything. They asked him not to stay away too long. Later, Zack got a call from Robert. Mindy had told him everything, and Robert was thankful for Zack's insistence on honesty. They hoped to mend their marriage despite the challenges ahead. Zack spent his last night in Houston with his family. Daniel expressed how hard Zack's departure would be and asked him to promise to return. Zack promised he would, just needing some time to himself. The next day marked the start of Zack's new adventure in Munich, Germany. He would work on developing new converters and act as a part-time salesperson. There was plenty of work in Europe, especially in Germany. Zack found a small apartment in Munich's city center, enjoying the anonymity the busy streets offered. Initially excited, he soon felt profound loneliness, questioning if the move was a mistake. His loneliness was compounded by the pain of his recent experiences. He tried to settle into his new life, joining colleagues for outings and attempting to enjoy local festivals like Oktoberfest. But his heart wasn't in it. His family, including Sam and Gabriella, continued to check on him, their concern growing with each call. Sam eventually urged Zack to start looking for a replacement in Munich. He needed Zack back home to lead new projects. Despite his reluctance, Zack agreed to begin the search, though he wasn't sure he was ready to return. He started coordinating with a local recruitment agency and conducted initial interviews with Frank over Skype. They planned to bring the top candidates to Munich for final interviews. Unexpectedly, Zack felt a gentle touch on his shoulder one day at work. It was Cassie. She jokingly said she was there to take him to Vienna for meetings, though they both knew she could have gone alone. Cassie suggested they spend the weekend in Vienna together, offering him an escape and a chance to relax. Despite his reservations, Zack was tempted by Cassie's playful invitation. They decided to take a scenic drive through the mountains to Vienna, enjoying a leisurely lunch along the way. Cassie's use of her mother's credit card ensured they traveled in style, opting for a Mercedes for their trip. They drove past Salzburg to Hallstatt, a stunning lakeside village known for its picturesque views. Throughout the trip, Zack was reminded of the beauty around him, which Cassie's presence only enhanced. They enjoyed their time together, with Zack appreciating Cassie's company and the brief respite from his loneliness. Zack had dinner with Sam and Gabriella at their modest home. Despite owning a successful business, they lived simply and drove Toyotas instead of luxury cars. They asked Zack how he was feeling. He joked about being glad not to be in jail and not needing an alibi, but confessed he felt empty. Sam mentioned how much Zack's family must love him, considering the risks they took for him. Zack acknowledged his appreciation for his family, including Sam and Gabriella. The mood was somber as Zack was about to leave Houston for an unknown period. Before departing, he hugged Gabriella, expressed his love, and thanked them both. Later, Zack received a call from Robert. Mindy had confessed everything, and Robert thanked Zack for pushing the truth. They were committed to working through their issues. Zack's last night in Houston was with his family. Daniel expressed concern about Zack's departure and made him promise to return. Zack assured him he would after some time away. The next day marked the beginning of Zack's new adventure in Munich, where he would be deeply involved in developing and testing new technology. He felt overwhelmed by his new responsibilities and the amount of work in Europe, especially in Germany. Zack found a small apartment in Munich's bustling city center. Although he initially enjoyed blending into the crowd, he soon felt intense loneliness and questioned if the move was a mistake. Despite efforts to socialize and integrate, including attending local festivals, Zack's heart wasn't in it. His family back home, including Sam and Gabriella, kept in touch, expressing their worries through each call. Sam eventually told Zack it was time to come back and start looking for a replacement in Munich. He needed Zack back home to lead new projects. Zack reluctantly agreed to begin the search, though he was unsure about returning. He coordinated with a local recruitment agency to find candidates and conducted preliminary interviews with Frank over Skype. They planned to bring the top candidates to Munich for final interviews. One day at work, Cassie unexpectedly visited Zack. She jokingly said she was there to bring him to Vienna for meetings, although they both knew she could have managed alone. Cassie suggested spending the weekend together in Vienna, promising a pleasant escape from work pressures. Zack was tempted by Cassie's playful proposal, and they decided to take a scenic drive through the mountains to Vienna, planning a leisurely lunch along the way. Cassie then revealed more about her role in their family business and her extensive education, impressing Zack with her dedication and knowledge. They discussed the company, the industry, and their personal lives, avoiding heavier topics like relationships or divorce. As they approached Vienna, Cassie mentioned her mother worried about him. Zack acknowledged that many women in his life were concerned about him, assuming Cassie meant her mother. They laughed about family dynamics and how Cassie's mother had cleverly made Cassie visit him, perhaps as a way to help him navigate out of his emotional maze. Zack admitted that the day's journey with Cassie had lifted his spirits more than anything in recent months. They continued to Vienna, staying in luxurious suites at the Park Hyatt and planning a festive evening with dinner and a horse-drawn carriage ride. From the top of the Ferris wheel, they sent another photo to Gabriella, capturing their cheerful moment against the backdrop of wintry Vienna. Gabriella was thrilled with the photos, but restrained herself from calling, pleased yet cautious not to intrude. After a lot of planning with Sam, Gabriella decided to wait and see how things would unfold, hoping Zack wouldn't get any emergency calls for MRI repairs. She kept herself busy with charity work to distract herself. Zack and Cassie enjoyed a late evening carriage tour in Vienna, snuggled under a warm blanket with hot chocolate, planning places to visit during their winter weekend. At the end of the evening, Zack got a hug and a thank you kiss on the cheek from Cassie. The next morning, after a great breakfast at the hotel, they met with the concierge to plan their weekend. Cassie wanted to see some famous churches and palaces. Zack suggested that if she liked cathedrals, he could show her one in Barcelona someday. Cassie smiled and said she might hold him to that promise one day. Their weekend went smoothly without any MRI mishaps, despite the cold weather. They visited many beautiful spots like Stephan's Dome, Kunsthistorisches Museum, and several palaces. Each evening, Zack received a hug and a thank you kiss from Cassie. On Sunday, before Zack headed back to Munich, Cassie thanked him for joining her, saying she had a wonderful time. Zack admitted he was hesitant at first, but ended up enjoying the weekend. He even bought her a snow globe as a souvenir. In Munich, Zack thought about Cassie often, feeling a bit jealous of her business meetings in Vienna. Despite this, he appreciated the good weekend they shared. On Wednesday, Zack surprised Cassie at the train station. That evening, after a business dinner, Zack walked Cassie to her hotel. She asked him about the cathedral in Barcelona he mentioned and suggested a spontaneous trip there for the weekend. Zack, having enjoyed their last trip, agreed happily. Friday's interviews went well. Zack and Cassie chose a candidate named Dominic. However, an emergency call from Belfast disrupted their plans. Zack invited Dominic to join him on the call to see the job firsthand. As Zack prepared to leave for Belfast, he apologized to Cassie for missing their planned trip to Barcelona. She understood, saying there would be other chances. Zack felt fate might be sending him a message. The job in Belfast went well, and Dominic accepted the position. Zack considered starting a relationship with Cassie but was troubled by his past actions towards Gerald. He knew he had to tell Cassie the truth soon, not wanting to keep secrets from someone he cared about. Zack prepared to move back to Houston, reflecting on the recent events. A week later, Cassie called to check on him, reminding him of the humid Houston weather and expressing concern since she hadn't heard from him. After making plans with Sam, Gabriella decided to see how things would unfold, hoping Zack wouldn't get any emergency MRI repair calls. She kept busy with charity work to distract herself. Zack and Cassie enjoyed a cozy evening carriage ride in Vienna, bundled under a warm blanket and sipping hot chocolate, planning what to see during the weekend. At her hotel door that evening, Cassie thanked Zack with a hug and a kiss on the cheek. The next morning, they had a luxurious breakfast and discussed weekend plans with the hotel concierge. Cassie wanted to see several famous churches and palaces. During their conversation, Zack mentioned a cathedral in Barcelona he thought Cassie should see someday. She smiled and hinted she might take him up on that offer. Their weekend in Vienna went smoothly, filled with visits to historic sites and markets despite the cold weather. Each evening, Cassie showed her appreciation with a hug and a kiss. On Sunday, as Zack prepared to leave, Cassie thanked him again, expressing how much she enjoyed their time together. Zack admitted he had reservations initially, but was glad he went. Back in Munich, Zack found himself often thinking about Cassie, even feeling a bit jealous of her meetings in Vienna. They kept in touch every few days, but Zack felt disconnected and questioned his ability to engage in relationships or marriage because of his actions towards Gerald. He still believed he was justified in what he had done, but worried Cassie or any decent person wouldn't understand. These thoughts felt like an endless cycle of pointless worry. Despite his concerns about his relationship with Cassie, Zack looked forward to returning to Houston to see his family and the Ortiz family. When he arrived, everyone was at the airport to greet him, but Cassie wasn't there. That evening, after dinner with his family, Zack walked Gabriella to her car and asked about Cassie. Gabriella mentioned Cassie was confused and possibly upset, unsure of where Zack's mind was. Zack admitted he was also unsure, still haunted by his past actions and how they might affect his future with Cassie. Gabriella reassured him, but emphasized the importance of being honest about his past with Cassie. She encouraged him to have that difficult conversation, believing it could clear the air. Zack promised to try and thanked Gabriella for her support. He said he'd see Sam on Monday and would try calling Cassie. The next day, Cassie didn't answer his calls. At work on Monday, Zack finally saw her. He apologized for his recent distance and explained he was struggling with personal issues. Cassie was clearly still upset, indicating they had nothing to discuss until he was ready to be open. As Zack left her office, Cassie asked him to close the door, her emotions hidden just long enough for him to leave. Months passed with little communication between them. Zack feared discussing his actions towards Gerald, worried about Cassie's reaction. Meanwhile, rumors circulated that Cassie might be seeing someone new, adding to Zack's distress about his future at the company. As time passed, Zack contemplated his role at the company, wondering if he could remain in an environment that felt increasingly strained due to his unresolved feelings and Cassie's growing responsibilities. The situation left him pondering his future and whether he could continue working at a place that once felt like home. On a Wednesday afternoon in early May, Gabriella entered Zack's office. "Honey, can you come to Sam's office at 5 o'clock this evening for a couple of minutes? We need to talk to you," she said. Zack agreed, wondering if this meeting meant he was going to be fired. At 5 p.m., as Zack walked into Sam's office, Cassie walked out, dressed elegantly, possibly for an event or a date. This thought made Zack feel down. "Hey, Zack," Cassie greeted him. Zack replied simply, "Hi, Cassie," and wondered if he could last in his job for another year, realizing he might need to start updating his resume soon. Once inside, Sam asked Zack to close the door. They gathered around the coffee table. Gabriella looked unusually sad. "Zack, as your employer, I can't really ask you what I'm about to, but as your friend, I hope you'll consider it," Sam began. He explained that Gabriella was involved with a local charity helping homeless women, and there was a small event that Saturday to celebrate their achievements. They wanted Zack to attend, dressed smartly, and suggested he should come alone, hinting they hoped he'd talk to Cassie there. Gabriella chimed in, "Please wear your best suit," but quickly moved on to more personal matters. She expressed disappointment that Cassie wasn't Zack's date, highlighting that she had stopped Cassie from bringing someone else, hoping Zack wouldn't bring a date either. "I'm afraid we'll lose you if you don't," she added, explaining her concern about the growing distance between Zack and everyone since his return from Germany. Zack felt conflicted, remembering the love and admiration he used to feel, now replaced by sadness. Gabriella noticed and pressed him, asking if he'd considered leaving the company. Zack admitted he hadn't looked for other jobs yet, but the thought had crossed his mind. Gabriella recalled when Zack showed them an engagement ring for Lisa years ago, hinting she had hoped he would fall for Cassie instead. "She is so special and so are you. I'm afraid time is running out," she said, worried about the growing gap between him and Cassie. Zack feared Cassie might reject him if she knew about his past actions towards Gerald. Gabriella and Sam reassured him, still believing his actions were justified. They encouraged him to talk to Cassie, stressing the importance of being honest regardless of the outcome. As the conversation ended, Zack promised to try talking to Cassie. Sam shook his hand, affirming his belief in Zack's good judgment. Gabriella hugged him, expressing her love. Zack left the meeting touched but weighed down by the gravity of the situation, uncertain of what the future held. On a Wednesday afternoon in early May, Gabriella entered Zack's office. "Can you come to Sam's office at 5 p.m.? We need to talk to you," she requested. Zack agreed, though he worried it might be bad news. At 5 p.m., Zack walked into Sam's office just as Cassie was leaving, dressed up as if for an event or date. This sight saddened Zack. They exchanged brief greetings, and Zack couldn't help but think he might not last at the job much longer. Inside Sam's office, he was asked to close the door. Gabriella and Sam sat with him around a coffee table, looking more serious than usual. Sam started, "As your friend, I'm asking for a favor. Gabriella is involved in a charity for homeless women, and there's a celebration this Saturday for the program's graduates. We'd like you to attend." Gabriella added, "Please wear your best suit." She explained her earlier hopes that Cassie would be Zack's date, but that hadn't worked out. "Most people will bring dates, but I've asked Cassie not to, and I hope you don't either," she said. Gabriella expressed concern about losing Zack if he didn't settle things with Cassie. The discussion turned to the event's details and Gabriella's request for Zack to speak with Cassie afterwards. Zack was hesitant, still grappling with past actions he wasn't proud of. Gabriella saw his sadness, remembering how he once looked at her with admiration, now replaced by sorrow. Gabriella reminded Zack of his engagement to Lisa and her mixed reaction, explaining it was because she had hoped he would fall for Cassie. "She's special, and so are you," she said, worried that time for them was running out. Sam and Gabriella assured Zack they still supported his past decisions, even if controversial. They encouraged him to clear the air with Cassie, stressing the importance of being honest. "If it doesn't work out, at least you tried," Gabriella reassured him. "But not trying at all is also a choice," she added, highlighting the potential regret of inaction. As the meeting ended, Zack promised to do his best. Sam shook his hand, showing his belief in Zack, and Gabriella gave him a reassuring hug, expressing her love. Leaving the office, Zack felt the weight of the upcoming conversation with Cassie, uncertain but resolved to face whatever came next. On a Wednesday afternoon in early May, Gabriella entered Zack's office. "Can you come to Sam's office at 5 p.m.? We need to talk," she said. Zack agreed, though he worried about the reason. At 5 p.m., Zack entered Sam's office just as Cassie was leaving, looking dressed up for an event or date. This deepened his gloom. They exchanged brief greetings, and Zack couldn't help feeling he might not last at the company much longer. Inside, Sam asked Zack to close the door. Gabriella looked unusually somber. Sam began, "As your friend, I need to ask a favor. Gabriella runs a charity for homeless women, and their first graduation is this Saturday. We'd like you to come." Gabriella added, "Please wear your best suit." She explained that she had once hoped Cassie would come with him, but that hadn't worked out. "I've told Cassie not to bring a date, and I hope you don't either," she said, expressing concern about possibly losing Zack if he didn't mend things with Cassie. Gabriella urged Zack to speak with Cassie after the event, emphasizing how important this was to her. She could see his sadness and remembered how he once looked at her with respect, now replaced by sorrow. Reminding Zack of the time he showed them the engagement ring he bought for Lisa, Gabriella shared, "I wasn't just shocked because you were in love. I was worried you might miss a chance with Cassie. She's special, and so are you. I think you'd be great together." Sam and Gabriella then stressed the importance of being honest with Cassie about everything, including his troubling actions in the past. "If it doesn't work out, at least you tried," Gabriella reassured him. "But not trying at all is also a choice," she added, highlighting the potential regret of inaction. As the meeting ended, Zack promised to do his best. Sam shook his hand, showing his belief in Zack, and Gabriella gave him a reassuring hug, expressing her love. Leaving the office, Zack felt the weight of the upcoming conversation with Cassie, uncertain but resolved to face whatever came next. Zack saw that Cassie lived in a neat, relatively new townhouse when he arrived. He took the detective's folder from the back seat as they walked inside. "Do you want something to drink?" Cassie asked. "No thanks. I need to keep a clear head for this," he replied, half joking about possibly needing a drink later. She poured herself a glass of wine and they sat down in the living room. "Okay, your turn," she gestured to him. He started with a heavy sigh. "What do you know about my divorce from Lisa?" Cassie encouraged him to share his story in his own words. He explained everything, from the day they met, their relationship, Lisa's change in behavior, her reluctance to play the violin, and how a pregnancy sparked her interest in starting a family. He shared about the upsetting call from his brother, the revealing newspaper photo, and the detective's findings. "I've brought the detective's report so you can see for yourself what kind of person he was," Zack said. He detailed the suffering the man caused, his disbelief at the man's celebrated status, and urged Cassie to look at the file. Cassie looked him in the eye. "If you say he's that bad, I believe you," she said. Zack continued, explaining how he sought justice for the wrongs the man had committed, detailing a plan that led to an intended but failed act of retribution. "I wanted him to be accountable for his actions, for the damage he caused to many, including ruining Lisa's love of music and our marriage," he confessed. Zack described how the plan involved creating an alibi by having his brother travel instead of him, and how he orchestrated a gas explosion at the man's house, intending to end his life, a plan that failed as the man survived, though severely injured. He admitted his ongoing resentment towards Lisa for aiding the man's recovery. He finished his confession, explaining his move to Germany and the emotional roller coaster that followed, concluding with his fear of rejection over his past actions. After sharing everything, Cassie took a long sip of wine, then asked, "Is there anything else?" Zack was taken aback, considering his confession the worst part. Cassie then revealed that she had known about him for a long time, pushed by her mother who had wanted them to be together before he met Lisa. She shared how her mother had reacted to his divorce and how Cassie had been pushed to check on him in Germany. Cassie explained her conflicted feelings about him over the years and her current perception based on his reputation at work. As the conversation ended, Zack felt emotionally drained but clearer about where they stood, aware of the significant impact his past actions and the evening's revelations might have on their future. Zack noticed that Cassie lived in a neat, small townhouse that looked new. He picked up the detective's folder from the back seat as they walked inside. "Do you want something to drink?" Cassie asked as they entered. "No thanks," Zack replied. "I need to stay sharp for this conversation, though I might need a drink later." She poured herself a glass of wine and they sat in her living room. She signaled for him to begin. "What do you know about my divorce from Lisa?" Zack asked, starting the conversation. "Just start wherever you feel comfortable," Cassie encouraged. Zack sighed deeply and began to share everything. He described how they met, fell in love, and the odd behaviors Lisa showed when he returned from trips. He explained her loss of interest in violin and how a friend's pregnancy made Lisa consider starting a family. He detailed discovering her betrayal, seeing a revealing newspaper photo, and reading the detective's damning report on the man involved. "I've brought the report so you can see what type of person he was," Zack explained. "He's caused a lot of pain." "Okay," Cassie said, looking him straight in the eye. "If you say he was that bad, I believe you." Zack nodded and continued, describing his plan for retribution, which involved creating an alibi and causing a gas explosion at the man's house, intending to end his life. The plan didn't fully succeed as the man survived, badly injured. "This is why I went to Germany," Zack concluded. "I was miserable there until you visited. And after you left, I was miserable again, realizing I needed to have this conversation with you." Cassie listened quietly, sipping her wine. "Is that everything?" she finally asked. Zack confirmed, feeling the weight of his confession. "Yes, that's the full truth." Cassie paused, considering everything. "Zachariah, this is a lot to take in. You've shared a huge burden." Zack admitted, "I know, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was scared it would end any chance we had before it even started." Cassie nodded, understanding the gravity of what he had done. "I appreciate your honesty. It's a lot to process, but I'm glad you told me. We need to discuss where we go from here." Zack felt a mix of relief and anxiety, grateful to have shared his secret but uncertain of the future. Cassie's reaction was more forgiving than he expected, and he hoped this honesty would pave the way for a new beginning, despite the shadows of his past actions. Zack understood that Lisa had paid a high price for her relationship with Gerald. "Do you remember the young girl who took her own life after Gerald harshly criticized her performance? What if he had treated you the same way after our divorce?" he asked her. "Gerald only cared about himself, using people to boost his own image." "He uses you because you're beautiful, and it makes him look good," Zack told Lisa. "Don't let him use you anymore. He doesn't deserve you, and you shouldn't let him continue to hurt you." Lisa thought about how much of her life she had wasted with Gerald. His sarcasm wasn't enlightenment, it was just his way of feeling superior, supported by others. She realized she was just one of many he had harmed. He enjoys hurting people and putting them down, just like he did to you, Zack continued. We, your family, and our families care about you and want you to be free from him. Lisa looked at Zack, the man she still loved, and tears rolled down her cheeks. "What's in the bag?" she asked. "It's from all of us to you," Zack replied, handing her the violin case. Lisa recognized the violin her parents bought when she won first place in the Houston Youth Orchestra. Overwhelmed, she burst into tears and embraced Zack, mourning the lost years, music, and marriage. After a moment, Lisa said she needed to leave Gerald. "I'm sorry for the pain I caused you, leading you to do what you did," she said. "Thank you for coming, Zack. I will always love you." She took her violin and left. A week later, Miriam visited Lisa and found out she had left Gerald and never saw him again. Miriam invited Lisa to teach violin to her children. Initially hesitant, Lisa agreed and found joy in teaching and playing music, bringing smiles to everyone's faces. She became friends with Miriam's family, who supported her after she left Gerald. They encouraged her to reconnect with old friends and apologize for past mistakes. Lisa moved back to Houston and started teaching violin full-time. She even performed occasionally with the Houston Symphony Orchestra and got involved with a new charity. Zack and Cassie married, celebrating in Vienna where they felt at home. They had 3 children, loved by both families. The products they developed were successful, leading to a significant corporate partnership. Part of the proceeds funded a charity Gabriella started, which Cassie later ran. Sam named it the Walking on Water Foundation, a nod to his belief in his wife's remarkable abilities. Years later, after a successful career, Sam passed away, leaving a lasting legacy through the company and the foundation. One night, Sam had an aneurysm and passed away peacefully with Gabriella by his side, just as he would have wanted. After his passing, Cassie started to help her mother with the foundation and eventually took over its day-to-day operations. The foundation's main goal was to support homeless and abused women in Houston. They built a new, larger facility to assist and house women and their children who were striving to change their lives. The old building was turned into a Montessori school that served children from birth to 6th grade. This allowed the women to continue their education or training while their children were cared for nearby. Mindy was brought in to run the school. The foundation continued to provide clothing and food to the women as they developed skills to avoid returning to homelessness or abusive situations. They also helped these women start anew by assisting them with buying reliable used cars, work attire, and securing homes or shared accommodations with other graduates. This successful model was later adopted in several other cities. Cassie was now being recognized for her leadership of the WOW Foundation, which her parents had started. Lisa felt a need to counteract the negativity that Gerald had spread and that she had once supported. She began writing uplifting articles for the Houston newspaper to celebrate and bolster the city's musicians. She encouraged others to offer positive reviews and support youth music programs. Lisa received many heartfelt letters of thanks, including from former conductors. Mindy also continued to support charity by singing at events, always accepting invitations to perform. Bella, now older, played the violin at one of these events, and her mother, Melody, had married Cassie's younger brother, Tom, adding to the family's joy. After a speaking event, Cassie joined her husband and mother, who were deep in conversation, something common for them. She joked with her mother, "Why is it that whenever I leave Zack for a bit, I always find you with him when I return?" Her mother responded, "I thought I lost him once, and I can't let that happen again." Zack chimed in, "You don't have to worry about that, Mom. Since Cassie rescued me from my loneliness in Vienna, she's had my heart. No matter where I am, I'll always come back to her and our family." Thanks for listening to One Infidelity Hit. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop us a like.